Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking on a work that's so much more than a novel. It's really a cultural flashpoint. Sylvia Plath's masterpiece, The Bell Jar.
It really is. It's almost impossible to talk about this book just as a piece of fiction, or even just as a story about mental illness.
Right.
From the moment it was published, it became this pivotal phenomenon, but it gained that fame through a tragedy that Plath herself, had desperately tried to prevent.
And its path to even getting published
Yeah.
it was a battle, full of rejection, skepticism, and just a ton of controversy.
Absolutely. The sources we've looked at make it clear. Plath saw this book as a necessary step, something she had to write to exercise her past.
But that's the irony, isn't it? The very thing that made it necessary for her, the autobiographical content, was what created all the obstacles.
Exactly. So our mission for you today is to really conduct a kind of forensic analysis. We want to pull out the core experience of the main character, Esther Greenwood, and look at her incredibly sharp and often very funny critique of 1950s America. But we absolutely have to examine that deep connection between the fiction and Plath's own life. The intense Romana Clef elements that she tried so hard to suppress.
Okay, before we go any further, let's define that term. I think a lot of people have heard it, but might not know exactly what it means. When we say Romana Clef, what are we talking about here?
Right, so Romana Clef is French, and it literally means novel with a key.
A key.
Yeah. It's a novel where real people and real events are just barely disguised. They're presented as fiction, but anyone who was, in the know or close to the author would immediately recognize who and what she was writing about.
And with Plath, it wasn't even that thinly veiled, was it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Esther Greenwood's guest editorship in New York, her boyfriend Buddy Willard, and especially her time in the mental asylum. All of it was drawn directly from her own life, sometimes with almost no changes.
Which is why she was so terrified to publish it in America. The sources say she insisted it shouldn't be published here because it would be hurtful to her family and their friends.
Precisely. Her mother, Aurelia, was extremely protective of the family's image. And the way Plath portrayed certain people, like her boyfriend, and even her own mother, was just so raw and unflattering.
She knew they'd be recognized.
Of course. American readers would recognize the characters, the colleges, the magazines, everything. And that was a public and a personal reckoning she just wasn't ready for.
So to really understand Esther's story, we have to set the stage. The novel opens with this very specific, ominous line about a queer, sultry summer that was dominated by the news of the Rosenberg's electrocution.
That framing is so deliberate. It immediately sets this tone of national anxiety, of moral confusion. You have to remember the year is 1953.